Nsanyusa okulaba ababukedde TV ekiro kya leero amaanyi n'eddoboozi Mbanoodini Ntege mu programu eno Akabbinkano. Munatusonyiwa okulwawo ennyo nga bumanyi embeera z'ebyuma bino eby'abazungu bitera okufunamu obuzibuzibu, naye era nga Bukedde TV tuba tulina okujja ku mpewo okutuusaako ebigenda mu maaso. Kitalo nnyo bannayuganda eri eggwanga lyonna n'ensi yonna okutwalira wamu twafiiriddwa omuntu omukulu ennyo mu ggwanga, omukulu amanyiddwa nga James Mulwana. James Mulwana abadde ne bizinensi ez'amaanyi ennyo mu ggwanga lino nga si bya bugagga byokka baga nti omusajja awo omugagga yakola bw'ati, wabula ng'obugagga bwe oba n'ebyenkulaakulana bye bigasa eggwanga lyonna nga si byakwepima ku kintu kirala. Era onjogerera bino eggwanga lifiiriddwa omuntu atasobola kuzzikawo gw'otajja gamba nti mu mwaka bwe guti tujja kuzzaawo James Mulwana. Era ne ntwala okunyolwa wano wamu ne Bukedde TV ne bannayuganda bonna ne mbagamba nti tulabire ku mukulu ono ebintu byakoze. Twagenda kutunuulira ku bintu bya James Mulwana bye yakola mu mwaka gwa 2025 ng'atubuulira yakola atya, bizinensi ze zajja zitya, yatandika atya. Omukulu James Mulwana. Mahadi Lusiba ali mu byuma, nsaba tutandike ebintu bino.
So you relax and feel relaxed when you are talking, and
how can you relax when you are
when the
queen is there?
Okay. Okay. Mr. Mulwana, maybe let's start from the time when you were born. Can you tell me when you were born?
I was born in July 1935.
In Uganda, which country?
No, I was Kivoga.
Okay, that's right.
I was born Kivoga, which is 78 miles from Kampala.
Right. So when did you start business?
I started business in 1961.
Can you give me a brief of how you started? What kind of...
Well, when I never been to university, so when I left secondary school, I tried to look for employment. I got a job somewhere in newspaper in charge of advertisement. And then I worked there for 1 year. Then I realized that was 60. I realized that it's not going to help so much. Then I went back to do something.
James Mulwana yazaalibwa ku Kiboga mayiro 95 okuva mu kibuga Kampala. Mulwana gw'olabayo ku nto wagamba teyasoma nnyo kiri awo, yagenda mu secondary school gye yava n'ayimirira ebya bizinensi.
So tell me, who owned the club?
The club was owned by Mr. Lynch.
Yakozesebwako ekitonotono lwesiba nyongera ku ddoboozi lya Mulwana.
So I moved from Express to go and manage that club.
Wow.
And from there, he helped me very much because he fired me 3 a.m.
Agamba yakozesebwako omwami omu yamuwa club nga bw'olaba club sito banjumwa, naye bamugoba ekiro ekyo. Okuva ekiro kimu kye bamugoba ku ssaawa 11 n'asalawo.
Well, I started indenting, what was called indenting, just looking after manufacturers, selling items on samples. I was representing a company called Akabbinkano, selling textile to the business community. And I exported. I had a company called Afro Agencies, which I formed. And then I was exporting some items which doesn't make sense to you today. It was wooden combs. And I was selling it to Shepherd's Bush in UK. So I was selling that consignment by post. Everything was efficient here. And they were saying that is more or less a market in UK, selling to a number of Africans who are in UK.
Tell me about combs. These are hair combs.
Yes, wooden hair combs. Before we started producing plastic combs. Yes.
So who are your clients in the UK? Let's go back to that.
Yeah, it was a small company in Shepherd's Bush Market. He was a Jewish, really. quote his name now, but he's the one who sent inquiry, which I read, that he was looking for African wooden combs. And it was easy to get the small people here to make them.
So give me an indication of how much was the comb at that time and how did you...
Oh, the comb at that time, to relate it to Uganda shillings at the moment, it's very difficult because I was selling it 10 pence, UK pence. So that's the amount it was costing them.
So let's start by, let's go back a bit. How much money did you start with as a business partner when you said, let me go on my own?
You mean now or then?
When you started at that time?
When I started, I had only 2,000 Uganda shillings.
Which is equivalent to?
Well, at that time it was a pound. 20 shillings was a pound. So you can divide that.
Was that from the bank? Was that
no, that was my little saving.
Okay. So you saved 2,000 Uganda shillings,
yes,
which was an equivalent to about, at that time, 2,000, about how many US dollars? About maybe 200 US dollars?
It was 20 shillings to a pound.
Okay.
So,
okay, that's fine. So you went into the comb business. How did it work?
no, I was doing both under Afro agencies. I was selling product on indent basis, getting commission, because we were getting samples from Japan.
Oluvannyuma lw'okugobwa ku mulimu gwe yali akulira ogwa club, James Mulwana yagamba taddamu kukozesebwa mulimu muntu yenna mulala. Bwe kufuna omukisa ne wabaawo omuntu okuva e Japan n'amugamba nti baagala omuntu asobola okukola ebisaanirizo.
And payment has been, the goods have been shipped, then you get 3% commission. So that was on indenting part of it. On the trading was that combs, which then when I started exporting that to Shepherd Bush, I was importing, it is known to the Queen that I was importing wigs.
Ebisaanirizo bye nkugambyeko abazungu baali babyagala ng'ebisaanirizo babibajja mu mbaawo kati nga bo babyagala n'abitwala e Bungereza. Oluvannyuma ye n'asalawo bw'atwalayo ebisaanirizo e Bulaaya.
But you are not very well versed in business. How did you manage at that time? Did they advertise that they wanted a client, somebody to work with them?
Yatwalanga ebisaanirizo e Bulaaya ebibajje mu mbaawo kuba waliwo omuntu eyali abyagala n'atandika okutwalira omusajja e Bungereza yatwalanga ebisaanirizo ebyo ng'afuna abantu wano ye Mulwana ne babibajja ne babitwala e Bungereza. Kiyasalawo okusalawo nga bw'afunamu ssente akomyawo ze twandise wiigi ez'abakyala. Ebiseera ebyo ng'abakyala tebalina saluuni ziri awo kati nga bagulamu wiigi. Kyeyakola ye nga bw'atwalayo ebisaanirizo ssente zajjamu n'aleetamu wiigi bannayuganda ne bafunamu ssente naye n'akulaakulana mpola mpola.
Until 1970, I don't want to go back, 1968, 67, there was a company which was coming from UK. They came to Uganda and they wanted to start a motor battery industry in Uganda. And they were looking for joint partner. I'm always referring to late William Kalema. He was a Minister of Commerce, and we were coming from the same region, area, Kiboga. So he introduced me to that person who was looking for joint venture. And that's how I started working with them, 1967.
Mulwana agamba nti mu 1967 waliwo omwami yava mu Bulaaya n'ajja wano ng'ayagala okukola gana n'omuntu nga kampani eyo yakukola batteries zino z'olaba naye ng'ayagala muntu gw'asobola okukolagana naye amugambye nti nja kutunda bwekiti kino kye tusobola okufuna okusobola okukola kino nga bamanyi kye bayita raw material era n'akiyingira bizinensi eno mpola mpola.
Because again I was importing those toothbrushes from Germany. So I said, if we can make them here. So that's what I started. I had a small factory in 1970, which is now moved from, it used to be Ship Toothbrush Factory, and now we renamed the company to Nice House of Plastics, because we are no longer producing toothbrushes. We are making a different type of product, as you can see them.
So from the time you started with the production of the toothbrushes, and then you moved on to, now you've moved on to another something different. How easy was it at that time to start a factory? Because there are so many Indians of Indian origin and others, and yet you are one of the people, I mean the first person to start an industry here, I think, an indigenous person.
Well, that was the advantage of, during that time, banks were very, very friendly. For instance, the investment during that time of the machinery for toothbrushes was costing 150,000 shillings then, again, which is 20 shillings to a pound. So the bank which was here, called Netherlands, it was a foreign bank, which was eventually bought by Grindlays Bank, which is now Stanbic. I had 20,000.
Mabega kwali byotawulidde agamba yatandika okukola obusenya naye ng'obusenya buno ate yali tabukola ng'abusuula kuva Germany ne bujja wano era kampani ye yasooka baali bagiyita y'abusenya oluvannyuma ennyo ebbanga bwe lyagenda liyita n'alabika okukola ebintu eby'enjawulo erinnya ly'obusenya ne livaawo ne lifuuka Nice House of Plastics omuli ebidomola amabaafu amasowaani ne peeni buli munnayuganda gyali at least wali okozeseza ku kintu kya James Mulwana yadde obadde tomumanyi wakozesa ku peeni ya Nice.
Well, things have changed. They are using different methods today. They may not use the old fashion. As I told you, Netherlands is no longer here.
Okay. Maybe a bit going back to the banks in Africa. Do you think the banks are fleecing off people by charging a lot of interest rates on their loans?
Well, I wouldn't say that the bank is charging high interest rate, but it depends because the interest rate differ from country to country. So it is not uniform on the continent of Africa. But in Uganda, the interest rate went up at one point because of defaulters. So the bank lost a lot of money, and they had to use a different method of recovering some of their losses. But now the interest rate has come down slightly.
Why is it very difficult for an African businessman to access bank loans?
I don't think the bank doesn't depend on, to get money from the bank, you don't have to be African, Indian, or European. It depends on the plan, the business plan you have. The bank look at your business plan and decide whether it is economical. They analyze the project. Even today, a number of Africans have been accessing loans from the bank, and Indians have been failing to get loans. So it depends on the business plan.
We are saying that it is becoming very difficult for people in Africa, especially in the third world country, to get loans, whereas it's very easy in the developed countries to get loans.
Well, it depends on development of a country. America is developed, so they have got a number of products which one can access finance, be venture capital. In Uganda, we don't have venture capital. So there are quite a number of components which other countries using. In Africa, we have limited components because the economy is just beginning and the entrepreneurs are just beginning. But definitely the bank have been responsive to those who can present plans, business plans.
Can we flash back? How much money do you inject in to start the battery manufacturing industry?
Well,
and what's the background of the battery manufacturing?
Well, the battery factory, the majority of capital was brought in by British joint partner. For us here, the local component, though we are given 45% shares, but it took a period of time to repay. So all what they did, they were not short of money, but they wanted a local joint partner so that they can work with the minimizing of the local requirements and knowledge. So the investment then was
James Mulwana agezaako tutegeeza nti okutandika ekkolero lya battery mu Uganda teyalitandikanga ye muntu wabula kyali kyayise joint partner n'abasajja Abangereza abajja wano nga bo beetaagawo bwetaazi muntu gwe basobola kwesiga bagaziya akatale kaabwe lwakuba kyatandika mpola mpola nnyo.
67 when the work was completed that they decided to come. Then we started looking for land in City Council down here. So starting building the factory because there is no industry building then.
Agamba mu 1997 bazimbira koloni ya Uganda Batteries kyali kizibu nnyo kubanga ebiseera ebyo tewaaliwo kkolero lyonna lyonna lyali lizimbiddwa era kyabatwalira emyaka 2 okusobola okuzimba ekkolero lino.
They were supposed to have 49 and local 51, trying to protect the local industry. But then the Uganda Associated Battery was owned by 55% British. But thank God that during that process, our company was not nationalized because it was small. So other companies were nationalized 49. So they didn't bring the money immediately during that time. So the work was completed that they decided to come. Then we started looking for land in City Council down here. So starting building the factory because there is no industry building then at that time. So we had to build our industry, which took about nearly 2 years. Now in 1969, May 1st, the Prime Minister then announced what was called Common Man's Charter, nationalizing all the foreign companies were not allowed to have the majority shareholding. They were supposed to have 49 and local 51, trying to protect the local industry. But then the Uganda Associated Battery was owned by 55% British. But thank God that during that
nkakudiddemu kakatono okulaga nti Mulwana agamba nti ebiseera ebyo waliwo kye bateekawo Common Man's Charter nga tewali muntu gamba nti nno nze nsinze emigabo nze ndi mugabo nga buli omu asobola okufuna omukisa okwenyigira mu bizinensi eno. Kumpi gavumenti yatwala amakolero gonna naye engeri yo Uganda Batteries engeri yali yakatandika yali etwalibwa okuba nti yali ekyali ntono. Kampuni yaabwe teyatwalibwa.
So everybody was excited. So they tried to bring more money. And then it didn't last. 1972, Amin expelled all the foreigners. The managing director was British. The financial controller was Indian. And we had 2 expatriates at that time. So they all left. So I was left alone. So it was difficult. So
Mulwana agamba entandikwa y'ekkolero lino teyali nnyangu newankubadde yalaga essubi erijja okubaawo nti akatale kajja kuba kagaziya okukola batteries wabula obuzibu obwajjawo nti Amini bw'ajja mu buyinza mu myaka gye7 yagoba abagwira bonna omwali abayindi naki ng'era kampuni ya Uganda Batteries gye baali bakoze abaaliko abakugu baali abantu nga 3 ye n'Omungereza omu n'Omuyindi. Omuyindi yafuumulwa n'Omungereza n'afuumulwa n'asigalawo yekka nga talina kyasobola kukola naye baasobola okulemerako empola mpola ekyabatwalira ebbanga. Naye nga yali akolagana nabo mpola mpola yadde baali wabweru wa ggwanga nga naye tebali mu business direct.
But unfortunately, in 1990, the company which was operating in 40 different countries, battery industry became very big in UK because the whole economy for battery went to Asia, South Korea, Thailand, and that part of the continent. So they sold all their companies. So I bought it in 1990. So now I own 100%. It's a family business now.
So how much is it worth now?
Abayindi mu kkolero lino ekiseera kyatuuka mu myaka gya 1988 eyo ne basalawo okutunda emigabo egyo gyonna era mulwana agamba baagimuguza gyonna ng'akati emigabo gibadde gijje na famire ye ng'era bizinensi ye nga bw'ogamba famire yange nekino eyo ye bizinensi yaffe ng'eddukanyizibwa ye n'amaka ge era nga bw'omubuuza ebyobugagga byakugamba kyekyo ekitaliko akakulizo ka muntu yenna.
You went into you are one of the people who formed the Uganda Manufacturers Association.
I revived Uganda.
So tell me the history of the Uganda Manufacturers Association and your involvement.
Because as I just told you that until 1972, I was already in the manufacturing sector. And at that time, the Uganda Manufacturers Association was really progressive, and it was formed by a very prominent, respected entrepreneur, Giant Madvani. And that man, he was down to us, so he was interacting with him. So I had opportunity of interacting with him because I was a member of Uganda Manufacturers Association. However small I was. So when we ceased operation in 1972, and I revived the Uganda Manufacturers Association in 1988, realizing that during that time we were able to benefit as an association. And you know, even Giant, however busy he was helping government. He was the chairman of import and export licensing, just to come and help. So a lot of input from private sector helped government to get the policy moving. So that's why I revived in 1988.
Do you think you're coming in help? To what extent do you think you're coming in help?
You mean the reviving?
Into the reviving of
reviving.
Your personal contribution.
Well, I wouldn't call it mine, but our collective effort of reviving that association. We started 75 of us, though I brought the idea, but I managed to mobilize 75 companies. Today, there are 700 members. And we have benefited a lot, indirectly and directly. Indirectly, I'm saying that the policy we have put in proposals in advocacy.
Ewe by'omukulu James Mulwana wano mu programu Akabbinkano. Kitalo nnyo tugezaako okuwa byafaayo yatandika ati kuba ekisinga omujjukirwako kiri kimu nkulaakulana gye yeetuusaako ye ng'omuntu n'eri eggwanga nga Uganda. Tugenda sooka tuwummulemu tukomewo oluvannyuma ate twongere mu maaso n'ebyafaayo by'omukulu oyo James Mulwana tova ku Bukedde TV.